everybody, and welcome back to another great episode of Deep in the Heart of Longhorn Sports. My name is Michael Ween, and I'm flying solo tonight here Saturday, February 7th, 2026, late night, the eve before Super Bowl 60. However, we will not be discussing the Super Bowl, but we do appreciate all the engagement that we can get here on this channel. So if you have a prediction or a feeling on tomorrow's game and you're watching this before then, drop your prediction. I've got Seattle winning, but if you are a Patriots fan and you think the Patriots are going to win, go ahead and tell me why down in the comments section below. And as always, make sure if you like what we do here on Deep in the Heart of Longhorn Sports and the Raw Prospect Podcast, Raw Prospect Football Podcast channel, make sure you like the video. It helps the algorithm, and subscribe to the channel. Again, it doesn't cost you any money. We don't send you any emails. We don't bother you. You don't even really get reminded for shows, I don't think, unless you turn on notifications. But we usually do go live. It's just me tonight. No Emmy Nixon. I wanted to jump on as we're now into the real thick of conference play in college basketball and talk about Texas and the latest on Texas basketball. And as we are now less than a week away from the college baseball season kicking off, I wanted to continue to talk about my thoughts on Texas baseball. Had some questions come in from some friends that I'm going to answer hopefully later on tonight, hoping to go about 45 minutes here, as I do want to get to bed. Kind of under the weather, so I apologize if I sound a little stuffy or congested. But yeah, excited to get into all this. So this is kind of where I wanted to start. I won't waste too much time with other housekeeping items. And hopefully you guys are having a great week, great weekend, enjoying the nicer weather here lately after we had that freeze. When was that? Last weekend here in Austin and all around Texas. I know the East Coast has been getting pounded with snow. So shout out to all the people I know on the East Coast. I can't imagine what that's like. I wanted to talk Sean Miller and Texas men's basketball. Obviously, if you follow Texas athletics, you know the Texas women's basketball team is an absolute wagon. They got another top 5 win on Thursday night against LSU. We won't talk about that too much tonight, but I wanted to get into the men's side. And in case you haven't been following, Texas men's basketball, after a win today over Ole Miss, led by Texas's former coach, Chris Beard, who was fired for, we all know the story. Texas gets a win over Ole Miss, and it's their 3rd straight win in conference play, and they now sit at 15-9 overall, 6-5 in the SEC. They're now above 500. They are above water. They've won more games than they've lost in what KenPom ranks as, once again, the best conference in college basketball. With 7 games to play, they are 6-5 in league play. They're 15-9 overall. They've already won as many conference games as last year's team that barely snuck into the first 4 of the NCAA tournament and lost to Xavier, who was led by Sean Miller. It's kind of all coming full circle now for Texas. So I wanted to kind of talk about my feelings on this team as we have about a month left in the regular season, give or take, and where I'm at with Texas men's basketball here about 3/4 of the way through Sean Miller's first year in Austin. And I'll start by saying this, now that we've kind of set the scene a little bit. Back in December, when non-conference play was ending, I would have signed up on the dotted line for 6-5 in SEC play through 11 games. No questions asked, no argument from me. Back in December, when this team finished 9-4 in non-conference play, I would have absolutely signed up for a 6-5 start in SEC play. and I wouldn't have really cared what it's looked like or how good this team actually is. I think Sean Miller is absolutely coaching his ass off with a very flawed roster. Talented in spots, absolutely, but a very flawed roster. We'll talk about some of those flaws maybe later on. But winning 3 consecutive conference games, not just in the SEC, but for this program, is not an insignificant thing. No matter the competition, I know it's Oklahoma, who currently sits in last place in the SEC, South Carolina this past Wednesday at home, a game Texas should have won, and they did. And then Ole Miss, a team that's struggling, now has lost 5 straight and is 3-7 in league play. But no matter the competition or quality of play, based on this program and where they've kind of sat the last 4 years or so, winning 3 consecutive games in conference is not an insignificant thing. In fact, it's a very significant thing. It's significant because this program hadn't won 3 consecutive league games in 1,120 days or over 3 years. Pretty staggering. So Sean Miller in this Texas basketball team has already accomplished something that this program hasn't accomplished in 3 years. But I would have absolutely signed up for 6-5 in SEC play back in December when non-conference play was ending. And especially after that awful home loss to Mississippi State to kick off league play on January 3rd. The bottom line, though, for this Texas team, no matter what it looks like, is they just need to win as many games as possible from here to the end of the regular season. So it limits the pressure on this team when they go into the conference tournament, the SEC tournament right before the NCAA tournament. The goal, if you're Texas and Sean Miller, is to feel very comfortable about an at-large bid going into the SEC tournament and not having that unnecessary pressure of having to win a game or two in the SEC tournament to have to make yourself feel better about securing a bid to the NCAA tournament. So a common question I get is, Michael, how many games do you think Texas needs to win in the SEC to secure a spot in the NCAA tournament, to secure that at-large bid and get themselves off the bubble? Texas has 7 games left. They sit at 6 league wins right now. 5 of those games left on their schedule are quad 1 opportunities because that's just how good the SEC is once again. Not quite as deep as it was last year when 14 teams made the tournament, but it's still damn good. And it starts next weekend. They get this week off. It starts next weekend with a prime opportunity in Columbia against a Missouri team that is a quad 1 opportunity. Then they come home. They play LSU, a struggling LSU team. That's a quad 2 game. They need to win that game. And then you have 4 straight quad 1 opportunities, 3 on the road and 1 at home. You get a rematch against Georgia, who you already beat this year, on the road this time. So it won't be easy. You got to go. Then you come home and you play Florida, who I think, once again, is the best team in the SEC. But we're not here to talk about that today. They're the defending champions. Then you got to go on the road to College Station, a team that already came and beat you in Austin and has been overachieving in year 1 under Bucky McMillan. That's a quad 1 game. And then the penultimate game of the year, you go to Arkansas, a really good Arkansas team under Coach Calipari in year 2. And then you absolutely have to win you have to beat bottom feeding Oklahoma to close out the year. That's something Texas couldn't get done ultimately at the end of the last season. So you've got five quad one games left, 4 of them on the road. But the bottom line is you got to win as many games as you can right now if you're Texas. But you are trending in the right direction. Okay? You're 6-5 in league play. You're above 500. You set yourselves up really well for the last month of the season. I think if Texas can win 3 of their last 7 games, and that's really not a humongous ask. Just 3 of their last 7 games get to, I guess that would be 18-12 overall, and 9-9 in SEC play. That's 500 in SEC play. That'd be 3 games better than they performed last year, and they got in to the tournament, barely. If they can do that, I think they get an at-large bid. It might be as a 9 or a 10 seed, but I think you absolutely get an at-large bid. If you're 500 or better in the best league rated by KenPom, once again in college basketball, top to bottom, I think Texas gets a bid. Because what that would mean, in my ideal scenario, is you win your 2 home games. You beat a struggling LSU team at home on the 17th. That's a quad 2 game. And you, at minimum, beat Oklahoma, who you already beat last weekend on the road, the worst team in the SEC, in my opinion, at home the last game of the season on March 7th. You win those 2 home games. All I'm asking you to do is pick up 1 more quad 1 win out of those remaining 5 games, all of which are quad 1 opportunities. You beat Missouri, you beat Georgia, you beat Florida, you beat A&M or Arkansas. Just win 1 of those games. And all of a sudden, after everything that happened in non-conference play and after all the struggles you had early on in SEC play, you're 9-9 in year 1 with Sean Miller in the toughest league in America, and you're in the tournament. And you're probably not having to play in the first 4, which would be an absolute blessing in disguise considering the last couple of years. You're probably in an 8-9 game or something like that, but I'll take it. Because those historically, I don't have the statistics in front of me, but those games are 50-50 coin flips most of the time. Like, those are some of the hardest games to pick and get right, for me at least, when you're filling out your bracket for March Madness. Those 8-9 games are tough. You never know which way those are going to go. So, like you always know, there will be a 5-12 upset or 2. There'll probably be like a 14 or 15 seed that pulls off an upset. But those 8-9 games, those are tough. So if Texas could put themselves in that position on this team's best days, they can beat some damn good teams. They've already done it this season. So that answers one question that I commonly get is, how many wins does Texas need to get in the regular season to feel comfortable about their positioning for an at-large bid into the NCAA tournament, no matter what happens in the SEC tournament? What you don't want to happen is finish with like 7 or 8 SEC league wins under 500, because what that probably means is you have to win 1 or maybe even 2 games in the SEC tournament, in my opinion. Especially with some of the less than ideal losses that Texas has taken on their resume earlier this year. But at the end of the day, that's the bottom line with this Texas basketball team. 3 consecutive league wins. Oklahoma on the road last Saturday, South Carolina at home on Wednesday, Ole Miss at home today. Beat Chris Beard. It's a great feeling. I won't get into what the crowd was chanting. We're not going to do that here. win 3 out of your last 7 games, and I think you're in the tournament. And you're one under Sean Miller, which would be beyond what I could have ever hoped for where we were sitting in late December coming into the new year. So that's kind of where we sit, big picture wise, with Texas basketball. Now let's talk a little bit about my thoughts on the past couple games and kind of how Texas has gotten themselves on a winning streak for the first time in what feels like forever. And then we'll get into some Texas baseball back half of the show. And again, forgive me, dealing with something. I don't know if it's allergies or a cold. Who knows what it is. But yeah, let's get into some of my thoughts. I'll start just today. Okay? Just today's game against Ole Miss because that's the most recent thing that happened. Texas jumps out to an early 18-point lead. Then that lead disappears. And this was a dogfight going down the stretch, to put it quite simply. That's the long story short of this game. Wasn't pretty for much of the second half. In fact, the start of the second half has kind of been a problem for this team. They're usually pretty good in the first half. They're usually either right in the game or even leading in the first half. But for whatever reason, that first 4 to 8 minutes of the second half has, quite frankly, lost them a couple of games they probably should have won. They really struggle in the early parts of the second half, seemingly. And it is kind of a bipolar team in nature. It is a flawed team, but the one common theme the last 3 games against Oklahoma, South Carolina, and Ole Miss is Texas has executed really well, especially offensively, down the stretch. They finished today's game on a 12-1 run to close it out. They did something similar against Oklahoma. They finished the Oklahoma game last weekend on like a 10-0 run to close out that game and win that game by double digits on the road. Seemingly under Sean Miller, they're finding ways to win games even when they struggle through like the middle half of the game. They're winning down the stretch, which is what you want. They're winning in crunch time. And I don't care what the competition is. You can say South Carolina and Oklahoma and maybe even Ole Miss aren't even tournament teams. I don't really care. You got to start somewhere. You got to beat those teams if you want to beat the top teams. And they were excellent down the stretch today. That's the long story short. They executed the last 4 minutes. They won the game. A game they were losing in the middle of the second half probably shouldn't have been, especially the way they started. But again, stack wins. That's the bottom line in February of college basketball season. You want to be playing your best basketball when we get to March 7th, going into the conference tournament in the NCAA tournament. Let's talk about Matas Voikataitis. He's been one of the most interesting players on this entire team. In college basketball, for that matter. I'll go as far as to say that. The 2 big issues with Voikataitis. One, he's humongous, right? So, well, that's not an issue, but like you love, if you watch him, you love his potential. I mean, he's 7'1", 7'2", 250 pounds, just a monster down low. Still kind of raw. He was conference freshman of the year last year at Florida Atlantic, but he's still kind of developing. He's a guy that just moved to the United States like, I think a little over 2 years ago. He's really kind of new to the game of basketball. He's still learning. But you love his potential. Today he was terrific. He basically, if it wasn't for the way he started and played throughout the game, Texas doesn't win today. And if Texas doesn't win today at home, a quad 3 game against a struggling Ole Miss team, that could have really hurt their their hopes and security of getting into the NCAA tournament. It would have totally changed the complexion of what they would need to accomplish in these last 7 games. But he was terrific in all aspects of the game. I thought he had a really poor game, especially just in his conviction and confidence around the basket. He was missing a lot of layups and dunks for whatever reason. He was just super frustrated on Wednesday against South Carolina. Today he was terrific in all aspects. He rebounded from a poor performance, which happens, against South Carolina. A game in which I think he fouled out, actually. 27 points and 7 rebounds, 9 of 11 from the field. He went up strong. He was decisive. He was much better finishing in and around the rim. And he only fouled twice. And the reason I bring that up is because it's been one of the biggest stories of this season for Texas. They were one of the worst teams in college basketball at fouling on defense. They foul a shit ton. In fact, after I think it was the Kentucky game, Sean Miller in his press conference said, "We have a disease. It's called fouling. We'll foul the fucking shit out of you." And to some extent, Texas still does that. They're getting better. But Matas is still learning how to play in the SEC style of play, physicality, and he has a knack for fouling. He can get into some foul trouble. That's one of the knocks on him from Texas fans and just from diehard college basketball fans. Only 2 fouls, though, for a guy that's averaging 3.3 fouls per game, almost 3.5 fouls per game this season. Only 2 fouls, played pretty clean game, finished around the rim, was really convicted, really physical, had a couple key blocks late. He was awesome today. Got to give him his flowers. Texas does not win without the performance of one Matas Volkaitis. And I hope he's back at Texas next year because he's got so much potential as only a sophomore. Tremont Mark was another player that was absolutely terrific today. He was struggling for the good portion of the month of January. Like mid to late January, he was a guy who was really struggling. And it was really hurting Texas because they need him to provide that scoring punch on a consistent basis. But he was awesome in the win over South Carolina, especially in the second half. He really came on in the second half of that game, scored 15 of his 17 points in the second half on Wednesday against South Carolina, really propelled Texas to that win. And then today, just another really efficient, turnover-free, solid game from Tremont Mark on the offensive end. 8 of 14 shooting, 19 points, made his foul shots. More of that, please, from Tremont Mark. And then a guy who's been terrific all season long. A guy I think should be, if not first team All-SEC, second team All-SEC, Dalen Swain, the transfer from Xavier who followed Sean Miller. He's been everything and more that any Texas fan could have hoped for. He's been absolutely terrific. He had kind of a off game today against Ole Miss, only scored 7 points. But, I mean, previously to that, in the 4 games prior, he had gone over 20 points and was averaging, I think he's averaging either close to 20 or over 20 points in SEC play. He's been absolutely terrific. He's put himself in first-round lottery conversations. I think he's more of a back-end first-round guy right now than a front-end first-round guy just because of the depth of this draft class and the amount of fantastic freshmen that we have, which we'll spend the next couple of months talking about for sure on this channel. But leading up to the NBA draft, it's a great year to be in the lottery. Holy shit, it's going to be You could get an all NBA first team guy at like the 8th pick this year. That's how good this draft is. I'm not even kidding. But yes, Dalen Swain has put himself in those conversations. He's been so good. I kind of give him a pass for today. Wasn't his best day, but honestly, that's kind of a good thing from my vantage point, just because Texas was able to get this win without him being the guy. And usually he's kind of been the guy here lately over like the past half month or so. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me. I'm sure I could find them, but he's an all SEC player. He's that good. If you're not watching Dalen Swain and Texas basketball, you're missing out on just his game if you're a basketball fan. The two guys that are really frustrating me right now for Texas basketball are Jordan Pope and Simeon Wilcher. Pope is a guy who was here last year. He's in his final year of eligibility. He'll be out after next year or after this season. Don't think he has much of an NBA future, but I could be wrong. Might be in the G League, might go overseas. We'll see what happens with that. But the last couple games, he has not been good, has not been much of an additive player for this Texas team. And part of that is like he's just not making his shots. But there are other ways you can impact the game if you're not making your shots, and he just doesn't seem to be doing that. Sean Miller called him out after the South Carolina game and basically said flat out, Jordan Pope did not play well tonight. In fact, I don't know what he did, I think were his exact words. And he wasn't great today. But what I will say is he did make a big-time three late in the game, which was huge to tie the game at 68 before Texas went on their big run to close the game. He has made a couple big shots here lately, but hasn't been great overall for a guy that's supposed to be one of the lead guys on this Texas team. And then Simeon Wilcher, I just didn't think had a great game, but I won't bang on him too much because he did make a couple big-time shots in that key run that Texas made late in the half or late in the game to put the game away. Look, if you step up in the biggest moments, a lot of the wrongdoings throughout the game can be forgiven, at least from my standpoint, if that leads to winning. So I know I'm rambling a bit, things I like, things I don't like so much, but the bottom line is, again, I'll go back to what I said in the beginning. If you gave me 6-5 in SEC play through 11 games when non-conference play wrapped up, I would have signed on the dotted line, no questions asked. Even if every single win was like 50-49, the most boring defensive game you can ever ask for, I would have signed on the dotted line. Because what it's done is it's put Texas in prime position to make the NCAA tournament and get themselves off the bubble. I would have taken that for sure. Let me think. Anything else on this team? We'll talk about them again probably mid-late week before the Missouri game. But very happy with the job Sean Miller has done with this team. I think he's getting the most, almost all that he can get out of this team with the flaws that they do have. They're not a good defensive team. Coming into today, they were 98th in KenPom in defensive rating. They're trying to get better there. But hey, look, they're top 10 KenPom team in offensive rating. Coming into today, they were 7th in offensive efficiency on KenPom in the country. You wouldn't think so because of their record, but this Texas offense, for the most part, has been really good. It's been their defense at times that has let them down. So, Kendall Weaver, God, I love that guy. He's just an absolute Energizer Bunny for this team. It's going to kind of suck, to be honest, that he's going to be out of eligibility for, after this season ends, but he continues to be fantastic. Still not a good shooter. He's improved in that department slightly this season, but just in terms of his athleticism, his energy on the defensive end, his hustle for 50-50 loose balls, his rebounding as a smaller guard, the plays that he makes, those extra plays, extra effort plays that don't show up in the box score. He provides so much value to this team. You notice his impact on the game even when he's not scoring. And that's what the best players do. They help their teams win, and he helps Texas win. He's been good too. But yeah, Texas basketball in a better spot than I thought they would be here as we sit the day before the Super Bowl, February 7th. And I've always kind of thought of the Super Bowl as a big-time benchmark for college basketball. Because once the Super Bowl ends, you've got the NBA All-Star break next weekend, if you're into that kind of thing. And then it's like the push to the end of the NBA season. There's no more football, sadly. But then it's March Madness in like a month, a little over a month. So slowly people will start to watch more college basketball as we get closer to the conference tournaments and the NCAA tournament. So I always kind of measured like we're 2/3 of the way through conference play pretty much. Where is this team? And they're in a pretty good spot. They definitely are. So proud of the job that Sean, I'm a proud and appreciative as someone who bleeds burnt orange of the job that Sean Miller is doing in year one. And I think there's a bright future here. As long as Sean Miller doesn't do anything sketchy like that previous coach, doesn't get himself fired suddenly, and Texas can keep Sean Miller for the long run, this guy can coach, man. There's a reason he's been to 8 Sweet 16s and 4 Elite 8s in his career. There's a reason he's won over 70% of his games as a college basketball coach. Like, this dude's a really fucking good coach. And this will not be, I guarantee you, the most talented team that he's going to have at Texas if he stays around. So good on Sean Miller and what he's doing with this Texas men's basketball team. And we'll talk about them more later on in the week before they play their next game. But with all that being said, I think for like the next 15, 20 minutes before I sign off and go to bed, might as well talk a little bit about some Texas baseball as that season starts less than a week. We're less than a week from game one at the Dish. God damn, I'm so excited for Texas baseball. And by the way, if you're into this kind of thing and you like watching college baseball, or you're a big Texas baseball fan, or just college baseball fan for whatever reason in general, there are going to be a lot of national TV games this season. If you have ESPN Plus or one of those streaming services and you get like SEC Network, you can see majority of the Texas baseball games this season. The reason why I say that is because this team, as I mentioned briefly in last episode, go check that out from last week. Near the very end, for like the last 15 minutes, I talked about some Texas baseball. They're number 3 in the country preseason. And it's like, it's well-deserved. It's not fake hype around this Texas baseball team. Based on coming off what they did last year, unexpectedly in their first year in the SEC, first year under Jim Schlossnagle, where they come out on this incredible run in league play, getting out to a 19-2 start in SEC baseball, just absolutely ridiculous. for a team that was picked to finish 8th in the league, like middle of the pack, they win 22 league games or a national seed get to host, or the number 2 national seed get to host a regional with a team that won't be even near the most talented team that Jim Schlossnagle will have at Texas. And I know it ended in a disappointed way, which is why fans are hungry for this season to start so we can try to get Texas baseball back to Omaha. But there are high hopes for this Texas team. So I recommend, if you can, and if you have the time, if you are a fan, watch some Texas baseball this season. It'll be well worth your time, I promise you. But yeah, there's a lot of excitement in and around Texas baseball as we're less than a week away. It's going to be fun. Let me pull up my my notes here, but I wanted to first get into like kind of what I'm hearing. This is more intel based than it is like preview based. And then I'll answer some questions really quick before I get out of here. First note, happy heavenly birthday to Augie Garrido, the greatest college baseball coach of all time, who would have turned 87 yesterday. Happy birthday to the GOAT. Happy belated birthday, I should say, to the GOAT. Let's talk about a little bit what I'm hearing. So, number one, it is widely believed that Texas could have the best and the deepest pitching staff in America. I believe it. Coach Schloss believes it. If you listen to him talk in some preseason interviews that he's done lately. D1 Baseball, the guys over there, Kendall Rogers and company, they believe it. This pitching staff is talented, and they have arms galore that they can throw at you. Much more depth than they had last season. It's night and day. It's unbelievable. The freshman arms and the returning arms and some of the arms they added in the portal. It's ridiculous. That's going to be the strength of this team. And so that leads me into my first note. There's a lot of speculation on what the weekend rotation is going to look like for a weekend series. Right now, based on the sourcing that I have and what I've heard from reputable people, Dylan Volantis, SEC Freshman of the Year last year, one of the best freshman closer seasons in SEC baseball history last year. He's going to move into the Friday night slot as a starter. A spot which I think he feels comfortable in because he started in high school. I expect him to be the Friday night guy. We talked about how he'll adjust to that role last episode. So if you want to hear more on Dylan Volantis, go back and listen to our last episode. Under the live section. Luke Harrison, one of the best starters in the SEC last year, a big part of Texas's success last year. I think he's going to be the Saturday night guy. Rock solid. We'll talk more about him soon. And then Jason Flores, who started some midweek games last year and is uber talented. I think he's going to be a Sunday starter. I think those three guys right now are primed to be in the weekend rotation. That's a really damn good weekend rotation. That's the first note. Quite simply, people, the baseline Texas fans, the people who aren't in the weeds like I am, they just want to know, tell me about the starting rotation, tell me what I need to know, tell me about the lineup, who are the guys I need to know, tell me about the bullpen, who are the guys I need to know. Well, those three guys you absolutely need to know if you're going to be following this team throughout the season. Dylan Volantis, Friday night. Luke Harrison, Saturday night or Saturday. Sometimes the games are different times, but you know what I mean. And then Sunday, Jason Flores. Pretty damn good starting rotation. Let's get into a couple other notes. Adrian Rodriguez, another freshman last year. He had hand surgery after fall ball, immediately following fall baseball. And so he's continuing to progress nicely after, that surgery. He's still in the process of recovering and getting back into the full swing of things, no pun intended, in preparing for the season to start after that surgery, which he had on his hand. And I don't know what specific injury he had, but he had a hand surgery and he's been recovering from that. So he continues to progress nicely, according to sources, in preparation for the season. It remains to be seen whether he'll be out there game 1 on Friday night against UC Davis at the Dish. But, Texas doesn't need to rush him back if he doesn't absolutely have to be out there. I feel confident that he'll play some next weekend. He just might start. He might not start right out of the gates. It just depends on how this upcoming week goes. But sources say that his defense has continued to look really good, and he's recently started to face live hitters in recovering from that hand surgery. So he's seems like his recovery is going well and it's reaching its conclusion, but he's getting back into baseball shape, doing baseball activities again, just getting back into the groove of things. He's going to be shortstop this year, which I'm really excited to see. After he had a really good season at third base, he's moving over to shortstop. And those are some big shoes to fill. I mean, you're stepping in for Jalen Flores at shortstop, but Adrian Rodriguez is a rock-solid defender. He showed that last year. He's not going to wow you with sparkler plays, most likely. That's not really his game, but he's going to make the plays. You're not going to see a lot of errors or mistakes. He's just going to be a rock-solid player for you there at one of the most important positions on the field. So, and I'd rather him make the plays than try to, make SportsCenter top 10. So he's doing well. I don't know if we'll see him right away, but no reason to rush him back against UC Davis. Just see how it goes. Here's a guy that I know all of you Texas fans, even if you're not a baseball fan, know if you're watching this, and that's Jonah Williams, who's going into his sophomore year athletically at Texas. Freshman, comes in, plays baseball, had a really solid freshman season, then has football. They gave him 10 days off after football season ended. After that Michigan Bowl game, they said, 10 days, Jonah, rest up, and then you're back in baseball. He's trying to do this thing where he's playing baseball and football. And quite literally, we all know Jonah Williams. He could go pro in either of them if he wants to. Probably not both of them. He's got to eventually pick a path. And I think that's one of the more interesting storylines after, this season ends. But he's officially been cleared to play. He's begun facing live pitching. He's kind of in a similar situation as Adrian Rodriguez. He's just getting back into the swing of things. Again, no pun intended. After football season, getting back into baseball shape. Those are two different things. After playing football this past fall, it still remains how quickly Coach Schloss, Troy Tulowitzki, and the coaching staff will put him out there. But I expect to see him in right field some. I expect to even see him in center field some. He's expected to take a big step this year. He's kind of the guy. he's a big X factor for this Texas offense, I think. But he's also a guy, he's just so athletically gifted that he can kind of roll out of bed and like do things that most 18-year-olds can't do. I mean, we have to remember last season he was hitting over 300 against world-class SEC pitching at 17 years old when he should have been a senior in high school. He's just ridiculous. So I don't worry about him too much. I do worry a little bit about his hamstring. Seems to be a recurring like nagging injury for him that bothered him some last season. But I would bet we see him sooner rather than later. He's just getting back into the swing of things baseball wise. A couple other things. Congratulations to Dylan Volantis and Notre Dame transfer Carson Tenney, who's going to be the starting catcher for Texas this year. Those two guys were named to the preseason watch list for the Golden Spikes Award, which, if you don't know, is kind of like the Heisman Trophy for college baseball. It's the best player in college baseball for that season. And so I think a couple years ago, Ivan Melendez, the Hispanic Titanic, won that award, if I'm not mistaken. Those two guys, both of them, are up for the best player in college baseball. So congratulations to those guys. There are a bunch of other preseason like accolades that have been heaped upon a bunch of Texas baseball players that if I read them off, we'd be here till like midnight. So I'm not going to do that, but you get the point. A couple other things. Ruger Riojas. I'm told that he looks like he's in mid-season form. He's been exceptionally strong since spring practice started back in January. It's going to be interesting to see how that guy's role evolves. Because remember, he started last year in the starting rotation. Then he moved into the bullpen. And that's where his best pitching that's where he was at his best last year, was in like a middle to late innings relief role. And then he was forced back into the starting rotation later on in the year when there were some injuries. And I don't know if it was fatigue or whatever, but didn't look great like towards the back half of the season. So it's going to be interesting to see like what role Schloss throws him in, because he's potentially he's definitely one of the most experienced pitchers on this team. I kind of see him as like one of the first guys out of the bullpen and a guy that can give you multiple innings, which is very valuable. I think like a 2-inning reliever, that kind of guy would be an ideal spot for Ruger. But I expect him to have a really good season and be off to the MLB draft after deciding to forego the MLB draft and return to Texas this season. He's on a mission. So expect to see good things from Ruger Riojas. And then some of these freshman arms are just ridiculous. I don't know if I want to get into all that right now because it is late. But like Sam Cozart, Brett Crossland, Brody Walls are a couple of the names that I've been hearing are they're gonna throw. Schloss is gonna put them in high leverage situations, and they are going to fuck. They are going to be awesome. These guys are not afraid. They're physically. If you look at them physically, you especially Sam Cozart, like that guy's not 18. He's not a freshman. With his beard and his facial hair and how big those guys are, those guys don't look like freshmen on the mound. They are SEC pitchers for sure. Some of these freshman arms are really going to help Texas this season. Sam Cozart continues to impress the coaches, not just on the mound, but in the locker room as well. Quote, He looks like a grown-ass man with his beard and has brought a level of maturity not often seen from freshmen in college baseball. That's from a source inside the program. So I'm super excited for these freshman arms that Texas has. And we'll profile them more before the season starts. But those are some of the freshman names that you should keep an eye on. But yeah, those are kind of all like the all the intel and notes that I have for right now. Let me look at the questions that Emmy had for me and see if I can answer them really quick before I get out of here tonight. Here's a question that I answered similarly for Texas basketball earlier tonight, and it is, if Texas wins blank SEC games, this season will be a success. Here's how I answer that question. First of all, I think what he's meaning to ask is, if they win blank SEC games, the regular season will be a success. Because I don't care how many games they win in SEC play this year. What we're really hoping for in year 2 is like a postseason lead, get to a super regional at bare minimum, and put yourself back in position to get to Omaha. That's what we're really wanting. And that should be the bar on a year-to-year basis under this coaching staff. But in terms of the regular season, Emmy, how I'd answer that question, you play 30, you have 10 SEC series. You play 30 league games throughout the season. If you can win 16 to 18 of them, meaning you're above 500 or well above 500, 16 to 18 is historically the range that puts you in prime position to be a host for a regional. And if you creep towards like that 18, 19, 20 mark, then you're in conversation for a national top 8 seed, which means if you win your regional, you also get to host a super regional. So get yourself to 15 wins minimum. That's 500 in league play. I don't think that's going to be asking a lot for this version of the Texas baseball team. If you can get up to like 16, 17, 18, even that 19, 20 range, that would be a successful regular season. And look, Texas, I truly believe this. They could be a much better team this year than they were last year and have a worse record in SEC play. That is not going to be a surprise. Don't judge this team based on what they did last year in SEC play. It's just not going to be – that's not going to be something that they do or any team does on a year-to-year basis, going 22-8. It's just ridiculous. They might do it. I wouldn't like totally rule it out with the talent on this team, but if you're 16-14 or you're 17-13 or 18-12, you're probably in that. If you're 18-12, you're in conversation to be a top 8 national seed. That would be a super successful regular season. Postseason is an entirely different discussion. That's where I think here moving forward, that's where these seasons are going to be judged, obviously, is in the postseason. Year 1 was kind of just year 1. It's kind of how it always is with a new coaching staff. But yeah, that answers that question. Let me see if there's anything else that I want to answer right now. I kind of talked a little bit about freshman arms. We'll talk about that more this week, middle of the week when we have our next episode. And we'll also get into some breakout players on our next episode. But I'm tired of talking. I think I'm coming down with allergies or there's been something going around my house. I don't know if it's like a cold or whatever it is, but I'm trying, like I feel it coming on, but I'm trying to do my best to prevent it from coming on, but I am kind of congested. And my throat kind of hurts from talking so much. So I'm going to head out of here. But it's great to be here for another live late night episode of Deep in the Heart of Longhorn Sports. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Let me check to make sure we don't have like any comments here. Okay, we don't. And I didn't expect that there would be much action considering it's so late. But yeah, guys, that's going to do it for this episode of Deep in the Heart of Longhorn Sports. Thank you guys for tuning in whenever you may be watching this. Again, Emmy wasn't here tonight, but he'll be back soon. And we have some tweaks that we're going to make to the channel, I believe. Nothing too major, but we'll let you guys know that as soon as we can. But thank you guys for tuning in. I'm planning to do another show middle of this week-ish. So Wednesday-ish is where you should look for another live show. And we'll talk a lot more Texas baseball along with some Texas football on that show. But thank you guys for being with me. Again, like and subscribe to the channel if you like what we do here. Leave a comment. Who you think's going to win the Super Bowl tomorrow? Enjoy the big game. Enjoy the rest of your week. And we'll see you next time. Hook 'em. Good night.